this video, I'm going to share with you some of the most shocking film experiences I have had with the Criterion Collection. And most importantly, each one of these films has taught me a lesson in how to view life and how to live a good life, either through a horrifying experience on film or through a joyous one. Now, I do happen to be filming this during the Criterion sale at Barnes & Noble, where you can get 50% off. That is if you are in the United States. Anyone else basically can't take part. However, even if you can't get the Criterion discs, please seek these films out by some other means. Check them out on streaming or online, because I really do think these are great films that they shocked me, so they might have that same effect on you. I'm going to start with a film that is difficult to watch, but is certainly one of the greatest films ever made. It's Come and See, directed by L.M. Klimov. This is a Soviet film looking at the horrors of war. And some people have been criticizing people for even talking about films that are in the Russian language at the moment, given what is going on in the world. But I couldn't think of a better film to watch to give you just the slightest glimpse of what it could be like to live during wartime. This is in a time when there are multiple ongoing wars in the news right now. And the reason this film is seen as being so powerful is because it shows this from the perspective of a young man who is basically still a child in many ways. He begins this film very innocent, very eager, but as the film progresses and towards the end, he is completely shattered and is depicted like this on the front cover. This truly is a shocking, important film, and I wish I could go into more detail about why it is so shocking, but that would spoil the experience for the people who haven't seen this yet. So please, I implore you, this is a great time to watch this very important film, Come and See. Moving on into slightly lighter territory, but still a rather sinister film, it's Leave Her to Heaven. This is the film from John M. Stahl. This is a noir film, but it is in beautiful Technicolor. And we follow Jean Tierney, who becomes obsessed with this man who she marries and will stop at nothing to essentially control him. And here we have such a dark, obsessive character. This film is from 1945, and I was not expecting to be as shocked as I was when I first watched this. It goes to some incredibly dark places, which is juxtaposed with the fact that this film looks so beautiful to watch. Much has been discussed about the films that were made in America during wartime, World War II. This came out in 1945 when the war was just ending, but it really does carry this kind of bitter, poisonous sentiment that would have been felt towards war at the time. And one of the more shocking things about this film and this character is that I can recognise certain things, certain aspects of the character in myself and other people in my life. And something that I discover as I continue on my cinematic journey is when we're confronted with these bad characters who have these flaws and these almost evil tendencies, that there is the seed of that within all of us. So I really do implore everyone to check this out, because even though it's an old film and you might not be into films from the 40s, it is so good, so powerful. Now for a film that shocked me in a different way, it's this one, F for Fake from Orson Welles. When I watched this for the first time, I had only seen Citizen Kane before this. I didn't know much about Orson Welles, and I was expecting something completely different. But here what I got really was a masterclass in editing and storytelling and lies and deceit. And the reason that experience of watching this for the first time was so shocking is because I felt like I was discovering some hidden treasure. That why isn't everyone talking about this film? Why isn't this like the textbook on how to tell a story? And being a film about deceit, it really highlighted to me again that that is something that is within all of us. We all tell lies, even the tiniest white lies, just to make life easier for ourselves and for other people. Lying is a very big part of our lives. In some ways, I'm lying to you right now because I don't really talk like this all the time throughout the day. I have to sort of put it on a bit when I'm on camera. So even films that describe themselves as documentaries and showing you real life really aren't, because they are structured, they are edited. And again, not to get too serious and deep on things, but this is an important thing to recognize, because any media that you consume, especially the news, is something that has been edited to tell a certain story. Even if it's based on real life, it has been morphed into something to be delivered to you. And what Orson Welles is doing in this film, in F for Fake, really does shine a light on that whole process. Next, I have a film that I have talked about on this channel before, but frankly I don't see many people talking about this film often, and I think it's one of the best films from the last 10 years. It's the film Phoenix, directed by Christian Petzold. This is a German film which follows a concentration camp survivor who is reintegrating into society after World War II, except her face was horribly disfigured when she was in those concentration camps, and she has a new face, and she is seeking out who ratted her out to the Nazis as being a Jew. So of course this film has a sort of moral backdrop of one of the greatest atrocities of the last century, but it is also a great revenge thriller. And again, it's a great look at how people wear different masks in society, and how people can lie and backstab, and how some people will just throw you under the bus for their own gain. I know that sounds really depressing, but in actual fact, this film is very empowering, and it is so suspenseful. It is so good, and I really wish more people would watch this film. Something much more light-hearted now is this film, My Man Godfrey. This is a comedy from 1930s Hollywood starring William Powell, and it is about a forgotten man, this man who lives on the streets of New York, who is hired as a butler for this very rich family when they come across him during this strange, almost sadistic competition that they're holding. But the thing about Godfrey is that he is a very intelligent man, and he is really the intelligent centre of this film, surrounded by this family who is full of crazy, buffoon-like people. And it shows this clashing between cultures and classes, but it looks at the perception of how we look at other people based on who they are, where they've been, where they've come from, and how in actual fact people aren't that different from one another. And the reason I categorise this film as a shocking experience for me the first time I watched it is because it really opened my eyes to the power of cinema connecting to us across time and space. That might sound a bit woo-woo, but what I mean is this is a film from the 1930s which depicted this family, this dysfunctional family, which I was really resonating with. I could see my own family up there on the screen. And in that sense, it really highlighted to me that we're not alone in this life. There can be people on the other side of the world with completely different lives to us who are actually going through very similar emotions and problems and issues that they are eventually able to overcome. So in that way, not only is it a very entertaining film, it's also very empowering and uplifting. Next, for something that actually has shocking in the title, it's Todd Browning's Sideshow Shockers, something that I recently talked about because we had Halloween season, and this is a brand new release featuring Freaks, which is a film that I never thought would come to Blu-ray. But I'm not actually going to be talking about Freaks here, I'm going to be talking about The Unknown, because that is a film that I found shocking. Firstly, because my expectations were not very high for it, and I actually found it to be such an entertaining film. It's a silent film that follows this circus troupe, and one of the performers in the troupe, who has no arms, falls in love with the daughter of the leader of the circus troupe. And what is so shocking about this is it's a depiction of love and, again, obsession, and the lengths that this guy will go to try and win over this girl. The girl, by the way, is played by Joan Crawford, and the guy is played by none other than Lon Chaney. So you have two very entertaining figures at the centre of this story. Of course, if you buy this set, you get 3 films in here and tons of special features. It's one of my favourite releases of the year so far. So yeah, it gets my full recommendation. It's time now for a pair of shocking films in the form of The Immigrants and the New Land from Jan Troell. It wouldn't surprise me if you've never heard of these films before, because frankly I don't see many people talk about these, even in the context of the Criterion Collection. This one does not pop up in a lot of these haul videos on YouTube. So I really do want to spread the word on this one, because this was life-changing cinema for me when I first watched them. These films follow these 2 Swedish settlers who go to America to start a new life. These characters, played by Max von Sydow and Liv Ullmann, go through some real hardships as they really try to make life work in this strange land. This is an America that isn't fully established yet, and life was very hard for these people. There is a lot packed into these films, both of them being over 3 hours long, and you really do come to feel a connection to these people after watching these films, and the hardships they go through, they are really traumatic. In many ways, these films provided me with a new sense of gratitude, because in my life I've become so accustomed to my way of living that I take almost everything for granted, and I imagine that you are the same, because it's hard not to feel that way when we live a certain way and we have it like that every single day. It is the little things now that I don't take for granted, and certainly the bigger things like family and love that are just so important to me, and it's very easy to forget how hard those things are to come by sometimes. It's sort of a stoic way of looking at life, so if you are interested in stoicism in any way, then this is the kind of film to check out. I really do think these are masterpieces, and not enough people talk about them. And now let's talk about Anatomy of a Murder. This is the Criterion edition, obviously, but it does have a 4K disc that is available only in that Sony Columbia Classic set. So unless you want to get that big 4K set, this is the one to go for. Anyway, this is Otto Preminger's film about this court case following this army lieutenant who, in a fit of rage, kills this man who he suspects of assaulting his own wife. I think I've explained that in a really confusing way, but it's an interesting court case, and what is so powerful about this film is it's looking at human emotions and murder and the things surrounding that in a really realistic way for the 1960s. What's really so shocking about this film is its approach towards sex and the discussion of sex within this court case. And this is not a short film. This is like 2.5 hours long. And in my experiences with courtroom dramas, sometimes they can really get bogged down in the location and the setting, and they can become quite monotonous. However, with this film, much like with 12 Angry Men, the way it's written and structured is so evocative that you start to picture exactly what happened during the crime in your head. It also happens to be one of my favourite Jimmy Stewart films. I love him so much. So yeah, this is one to check out if you want a shocking experience, because I guarantee it will not be what you expect. So there you have 8 recommendations for shocking things to watch from the Criterion Collection, perhaps during a 50% off sale. If you enjoyed these recommendations, please do let me know in a comment below, and I'll try and do something similar to this soon. Click the video on screen now if you want some more Criterion Collection recommendations from me, because I have lots of those on this YouTube channel. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.